How do you see this Chinese cultural scene or traditional scene is having an influence on Western pop culture?
They're very popular courses. For example, you wouldn't expect a course in early Chinese philosophy to be one of our most popular undergraduate courses, but it is.
Yourself is the first woman president of Harvard.
That perhaps can be a kind of North Star for other young women who might imagine lives beyond what their immediate circumstances offer.
2015年3月16日，中国国家主席习近平在人民大会堂会见了哈佛大学校长福斯特。福斯特成为今年全国两会后习近平会见的首位外宾。作为哈佛历史上的首位女校长，福斯特怎样看待中美文化交流？让我们走进今天的请问。
How do you see this Chinese cultural scene or traditional scene is having an influence on Western pop culture?
Chinese is a matter of great interest to our students. It's a legacy of learning and civilization that's so important for everyone to understand, and they're very popular courses. For example, you wouldn't expect a course in early Chinese philosophy to be one of our most popular undergraduate courses, but it is. Very large, popular course. So lots of interest in China, both past and present.
You mentioned this humanities. Many students came to Harvard for humanities, but they end up in something else.
We have seen a decline in the number of people who choose humanities as their major field, what we call a concentration. And a group of our faculty decided humanities faculty wanted to investigate this and understand more what did appeal to students and then what changed their minds as they pursued their studies. And they found something quite interesting, which is many students who shifted to social science fields.
Yeah.
And when asked why, they said, we see in the social sciences a more direct way of influencing the world, of building a better world. And we don't see as clearly how what we learn in literature and the arts and the humanities can have a direct effect on the world.
Yeah.
And so this gave some hints to our humanities faculty about the need to show how the humanities can relate more directly to the world. And so they've begun to establish programs of internships and other kinds of ways for students to understand more fully why studying the humanities can have an impact on the world. So we'll see what kind of influence that has. What we see at Harvard is part of a broader national trend in which students feel very pressed by the need to understand what their future is going to be and understand what particular job they might have when they finish their studies. And I think our students worry that fields in the humanities don't give us direct a line to that kind of job opportunity. I make an argument that endeavors to counter that by saying what the humanities can give you and what is so important is an understanding of humankind, of how the world changes, of the way it has been, and thus the imagination for you to imagine how it might be different in the future. It gives you habits of mind, it gives you a kind of flexibility and adaptability that will last beyond a first job and really suit you for your whole life. And so I believe that the humanities are one of the best possible job preparations. And so I try to make that case actively. And I've actually, in China, had conversations with leading Chinese educators who make a similar case to me about the need for broad liberal arts education in China because of the way that engenders creativity, imagination, inventiveness, the kinds of traits that carry you into wherever the future might take us and aren't necessarily tied to a particular vocation as it appears at this particular moment.
China is even more of a pragmatic stance. In China, most of them came from engineering background. So people's or the society's view on, they are not giving due credit for humanities or social sciences. What's the best way to promote kind of social science or humanities education in China?
Well, I work very hard at this in the United States. In China, I would think it would be a matter for educators and leaders to discuss and define. For me, one of the most important parts of a broad education is to ask the question, not just what are the tools to carry us forward, but where is it we want to go?
Yeah.
How do we want to use these tools of technology, these tools of science, which are so magnificent and which should be studied and embraced by students? But we do need to have the capacity to ask, what do we want civilization to be, and how does technology advance us towards that goal? We need to understand that as well, and that seems to me a special purview of the humanities and the social sciences.
美国大学的经费很大一部分源自于外部捐赠，这其中有校友，也有各行各业的成功人士。作为美国顶尖高校，哈佛、耶鲁、斯坦福等培养了大批的中国留学生，也收到了其中不少学成者的丰厚回赠。这些捐赠支持着哈佛进行各个前沿领域的研究，以及对贫困学生的资金援助。
The Chen family in Hong Kong donated a huge sum to the public health school, and so the two leaders of Soho China donated for, I think, 15 million to Harvard. I'm just wondering how Harvard is using it, perhaps as a reference for Chinese universities receiving these donations.
We're very, very grateful for these marvelous gifts that support some of the most important things we do. And the support for the School of Public Health came from an alumnus of the school who felt his life had been changed by what he learned during his time at the School of Public Health. In the case of the donation that came for supporting students, we're just delighted to be able to support more students from China. We have almost 800 students at Harvard now who come from China across the different schools of the university. And this particular gift will support undergraduate study, an area in which growing demand on the part of Harvard, on the part of Chinese students has increased their numbers significantly in recent years. So we're very proud and pleased to have the support to advance that further.
Inequality is a big topic over the last year. Comparing to inequality of outcome, people worry more about inequality of opportunities. How do you see Harvard's role in it?
I believe that education is an absolutely key factor in combating inequality. It's education that transforms people's lives, opens the world of opportunity to them. And so Harvard is committed to that vision of what education is. We have a very significant financial aid program, for example, for our undergraduates, where any individual who comes from a family that makes less than $65,000 a year pays no family contribution towards tuition.
Yeah.
And we have this in place because we want the most talented and the most motivated students to be able to come to Harvard regardless of means. And that program applies to non-US based students as well as US students. And so we really want to be a magnet for talent from around the world and talent in the variety of forms in which it appears. And we think that supporting students is a critical way to do that. And as we watch these students, they're often first-generation students, the first people in their families to have higher education. And we see them set their sights on changing their own lives, but often, too, changing the lives of their family members, the communities from which they come. And so we feel that this is an enormous responsibility for Harvard to the issue of inequality and the need to combat it.
Yeah. Financial aid is one side of the story, but the another side is the legacy student. I have a Harvard graduate actually from public health saying the elitism within Harvard is quite strong. I'm just wondering, over the years, is Harvard doing better in this regard?
Well, we have dramatically increased the numbers of students that do come from lower income families. We also, as you say, have many students who have parents or grandparents or other relatives who've come to Harvard and who see Harvard really as a community that they and their families have been part of. Those students are highly qualified and come to Harvard with talents comparable to those of other students we accept. And so we have a diverse student body on many dimensions. They are diverse in terms of their national origins, they're diverse in terms of their economic circumstances, and we feel as well as their race, ethnicity, men and women, of course, and we see the economic diversity as something that is an important part of Harvard as well. When I was named president of Harvard, I got lots of letters from young women all over the world saying, now that you are president of Harvard, I know I can do anything. And I remember one of these letters came from a young woman studying science in China. And I was very moved by that letter, and it really had an effect on how I've lived my life as president, because I felt I didn't want to be labeled as just the woman president of Harvard, but I, at the same time, wanted to fully represent what these young women needed from me, which was to be a role model and to affirm their possibilities and opportunities. And so as I've traveled around the world, I have often gone to girls' schools. I went to Shanghai No. 3 Girls' School a number of years ago and met with young women who asked me in excellent English, I will say, they were extremely accomplished, asked me all kinds of questions about everything from how do you organize your family life, do you have any children, how did you overcome obstacles in your career, to very specific questions about American academic life. So I feel if I can in any way represent and communicate a life of opportunity, a life that far exceeded any expectation I had as a child, that perhaps can be a kind of North Star for other young women who might imagine lives beyond what their immediate circumstances offer.